सर दोबारा अनाउंस करें।
मेरे जो मीडिया के जो फ्रेंड्स हैं यहाँ पर, खासतौर पर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया से, अपना कैमरा बंद कर दें प्लीज़। एक्चुअली जो है, बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, मैंने कल इस्लामाबाद में मेरी एक डिटेल प्रेजेंटेशन मैंने दी थी कश्मीर के ऊपर। मैं दोबारा उसको यहाँ पर रिपीट नहीं करना चाहता हूँ। इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल इवन टू टॉर्चर ऑल द स्पीकर्स, आई वांट, हमारे पास और भी बहुत सारे स्पीकर्स ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड आए हैं जिनको भी हमें सुनना चाहते हैं। बट आई विल जस्ट गो थ्रू सम ऑफ द स्लाइड्स एंड सम ऑफ, बिकॉज for any presentation or for any columnist, as a journalist, we are told that it must have shock, it must have suspense, and it must have information. So I will try to combine these three elements in my presentation. First of all, what exactly मुझे याद है कि Prime Minister साहब यहाँ पर नहीं हैं. First time I had met him when he was in Delhi, way back in some track 2 initiatives which Gilani had launched. मैं उनके घर पर उनसे पहली बार मुलाकात हुई थी. Since then, India has changed a lot. What has changed in India? That exactly what I want to actually. I want to first go through that. Why India has changed? How India में actually changed हुआ क्या है? Because we have the last some elections which I covered in India. It looked that the election जो है, it is just like the Pakistan is a party in that election. Last 2019 election, I left in the midway. It was the first election which I didn't cover quite fully after 1990, because it was just like the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was I think contesting elections against Masood Azhar, as if he was a candidate there in his election party. So let me begin with a video which I had captured when I was covering the Gujarat elections. And in the the IPS had arranged a conference in 2018 about the rising extremism. So this was actually my presentation there, but I won't go all the presentation, I will just have some of the slides of this presentation. You can start. Which are actually taught in India. I have not such an opportunity. I didn't have some resources to go through all the textbooks of all the states, because education is a state subject. So the textbooks are being formulated by the state governments. This is the textbook which is being taught in Gujarat, in the state of Gujarat. So I think for our international speakers to have a look why exactly India has changed. It's a class 6 textbook where it is being taught why those who are non-vegetarians, how they cheat, how they tell lies, they forget, how the raw minds in India are being created, how a hate is being actually institutionalized. It is institutionalized of this hate. If you can, an 11-year-old boy is being told, that these non-vegetarians, they steal, they fight, and they turn to violence and commit sexual crimes. This is part of the another Gujarat primary school syllabus as reference literature, where it says that the countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Burma, they are part of India. They are the part of the Akhand Bharat. I think our Afghanistan friend here Afghanistan is a very friend of India right now. So our friends of Afghanistan must learn that they are also it's not only the Pakistan, it's not only the Kashmir things. The agenda is quite very wide. This undivided India is a truth, divided India is a lie. Division of India is unnatural and it can be united again. India's neighbors should not recognize as different countries at all. This is in the textbooks. It's not in somebody's. This is a social science English medium textbook. Again, for this Gujarat Council for Education Research. It is published. It says entirely different. It says that in partition, a new country was born, which was now named as Islamic Islamabad, and which capital is Khyber. I don't know which history, which geography they are mentioning. And this is the very racist quote by India's former Vice President, Dr. Radhakrishnan, which is in this one of the English medium schools taught in Gujarat. So there is a story about that once this Dr. Radhakrishnan went for a dinner, there was a Briton and an event where this Radhakrishnan laughed into this God felt like something right when he was cooking the rotis. The first one he cooked less than English was born. The second one stayed later and finally the Negro was born. And the first two mistakes the God went to cook the third roti. Then it came out just right and the result was the Indian was born. This is another racist wisdom from the same book. The pilot and the Indian together thrashed the Negro and tied a rope tied a buffalo. Frantically, this is actually racism is being actually spread. Racism is being actually taught in the schools. And this is India's achievements of this same in the Gujarat school textbook. It rubbishes the Holocaust and projects Hitler as a true leader. Hitler lent dignity and prestige to the German government with a short time, establishing a strong administrative setup. This is I can go on and on. I don't want to actually take much of the time of much of your time. There is this again in the text. This Delhi's Qutub Minar is seen today as a famous. This was built by. This not was built by him. This was built by some. It is the class 7th history book in Rajasthan. There is a constant reference of the Muslim rulers attacking Hindu temples. There is a description of this Alauddin Khilji's Maharaja Surajmal, how this about when it comes to Nizamuddin Awliya, the book says that despite being a follower of particular faith, he wasn't a religious figure. So I think I stop this presentation here. This presentation here is a detailed presentation. It is with the IPS, and sometime if somebody wants to go in detail how the history and how the history is being changed in India, how history is rewritten in India, how this raw minds they are being taught in India. I can go just before this. Can you take it? This is actually when you try to understand India, you must have this thing in mind. This is actually this India, which the ruling class of India, these Brahmins, Kshatriyas, the castes of India, these castes, for you, Mr. Roger, this is which I was mentioned, the Brahmins who represent on 3.5% of the total population, but the politics they are 41%, in jobs they are 62%. These Kshatriyas are 5.5% of the population, 15% in jobs and 12% and they hold 80% of land holdings in India. Same is the case with the other third upper caste. Total, these are the 15% of this population, which actually has almost 85% of which controls 85% of the resources of India. So once if we are dealing with India, I am sometimes I get very amazed that the quality of research in Pakistan about India is quite very weak. They don't have any idea about India's dynamics and India's internal systems. So, can I just leave it? Can go to Kashmir? In Kashmir, actually, there's just one slide I want to. Yes. In this, I have just quite a detailed slide. I don't want to get all of that, but there are some misconceptions here. That it's the biggest misconception that the Kashmir Valley is the Muslim majority, Jammu is the Hindu majority, and the Ladakh is the Buddhist majority. This is the India's own census, where the Ladakh was never a Buddhist majority area. In Ladakh, Buddhists comprised only 39%. There were more Muslims in Ladakh than the Buddhists. Also, there are 3 regions in Jammu itself. This is Jammu Tawi, yes, which is the Hindu majority region. There is a Bir Panchal, which is a Muslim majority, 74% Muslim population. And the Chenab Valley, which has almost 60% Muslim population. And also take care of this statistics also. This is statistics of in Hindus in Jammu itself, where also the largest group is again Muslims, and the other largest group is that Brahmins and then Dalits are also 20%. The most dominant class, which we have all heard about, that who ruled Kashmir from 1846 to 1947, they are just 12% in that area. And we always treat it as a Dogra belt. It is not a Dogra belt. In this also, even if you consider them as a block, as a Hindus, even in that, these Dalits and are the ones who are in considerable numbers. If you add up these Muslims and Dalits number, it becomes more than 50%. It is quite a case. How unfortunate we are that even our freedom movement leaders also have never actually treated Jammu like this. They've also not been able to comprehend that in Jammu there was a large kind of a population which they could have actually easily, they could have enticed them, they could have easily actually given them some privileges, they could have easily been a part of them. So we have always treated Jammu through these Dogra and through these upper caste. That's why we always fail to realize our role. So this is another area where most of our friends, mostly in Azad Kashmir, they get into this Indian propaganda. You see, this is the area of Jammu. Area of Jammu and Kashmir has also always been disputed. You see this in 1891 census, it was 80,900, and it was again in 1901 census again 8090, 1911 census 84, 1941 census 82, and in 1961 census it came out of blue 86,000 square kilometers. This is the India this India produced in 1959. They increased this area is 86,000 kilometers. Nobody knows why. So it was quite, I think the last year when this A.G. Nurani, his book came out, India-China Boundary Dispute. In his last chapter, in the India-China Boundary Dispute, he mentioned there was a 17-page paragraph memorandum which was sent by India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru to the Foreign Office, and they were advised to burn all the old maps. So it was a night-long operation. It was happened in South Block in Delhi. All the old maps were burned, and the new maps were created. What was the new map? This was the new map. The area which was increased actually to pull down Pakistan was this area, which areas ceded to China to Pakistan. This area was never in 1846 when the territory was transferred from British to Maharaja. This area was only at the cartographic claim. Area was never in possession of the Jammu and Kashmir. What exactly had happened in that India-Pakistan-China agreement is only thing that when they had complained to Chinese President, Prime Minister Choi Lai and Mao Zedong, that these Chinese soldiers are taking grazers from this area, they are kidnapping, they are taking the grazers and detaining them. So in that they told them they can release that area of that grazing area. I think that comes from 760 kilometers, 760 square miles or something like that. Instead, if they abrogate this cartographic, it was always a cartographic claim. This territory was never in possession. It is a big lie and big propaganda engineered by India, which we all buy, and repeatedly we go with this. Now, actually, I want to go to this broad stakes now. This is right now how India wants to deal Kashmir and is dealing Kashmir. Number one, they say that it is the first and the last moment to tell Kashmiris and to tell Pakistan that whatever they want to achieve is unachievable. So, and number two is that they want to tell Kashmiris that nobody is listening to them at the international level. And this number third is that Pakistan is not in a position to help them. Number four is that those who want to create a kind of an optimism, create a kind of an impression, they need to be taken to task. Whether they are the leaders from inside or whether they are the countries from outside. You saw quite recently how India behaved when Malaysia and Turkey raised the issue at the United Nations. They imposed an economic cost on Malaysia by cutting down those palm oil imports. There was an agreement which actually agreement had not been signed, but Turkey was actually one of the Turkish company was actually in the last they were bidding for the $2.4 billion contract of a shipping oil contract, which was cancelled. So this is that they have to be shown. Those who number five is all the points need to be reported and reiterated to Pakistan through media repeatedly that it is not in a position to help Kashmiris, it is not in a position to make any international ground for Kashmiris. It has to come repeatedly in the media. And quite unwittingly and wittingly, yes, we ourselves also become part of this India's strategy. And number six is to test Pakistan's raw nerves in Balochistan, Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir to keep it away from helping in Indian occupied Kashmir. And number seven is to achieve territorial dominance in Kashmir to change mindset of Pakistan and Kashmiris. This is actually quite on one hand, the Pakistan actually gives up its stand on Kashmir, and on second, it is will be made clear to Kashmiris that they realize that their future lies only with India. And the number 9, which is also the last point also, is that to convey to pro-India parties like this, mainstream political parties, to convey to them that their politics no longer lies with giving solutions, giving formulas. Their politics should only be restricted to development, should be restricted to what the kind of the politics in the rest of India, other political parties are in the rest of India, and that these are the 9 points out which on this India is right now actually repeat and quite very assiduously India is actually these points emphasizing in Kashmir, and they are being told now on for this number 1 point, that is it is the first and last moment to tell Kashmiris that what you want to achieve is unachievable. The Kashmiris on the streets are replying themselves. What Kashmiri streets are telling India is that what you want to achieve is unachievable. But for all other points, they are not in their control. They have to be someone else had to take the charge, or someone else had to build a kind of a strategy, build a kind of a roadmap, at least in all those other points India is replied, as Kashmiris are replying the India on the streets. Actually, I will just go right now directly to some of the recommendations. Is that this Azad Jammu and Kashmir, your government, they have after August 5, they have a big role to play. There are more responsibilities now on this part of Kashmir than it was ever. It was a base camp for the freedom movement. I don't know, it has to become actually now an intellectual base camp. It has to now become a cultural base camp, not only for the Kashmir, but for whole of Kashmir now. I don't think the way for this August 5, what it had done. In August 5, it has attacked my identity. It has attacked my. It has attacked my. मेरे ख्याल में कैमरा बंद करवा दीजिए आप. It has actually dissolved my identity. Urdu was my official language for last 100 years. Urdu is no more official language of Kashmir now. Exactly in 1857, what British did to Persian. After just 2-3 years, there was a proverb, "Padho Farsi becho tel." Same thing is going to happen to Urdu now in Kashmir. And my Kashmiri language, its script is now going to be changed to Hindi script, to Devanagari script. So no Kashmiri will not be able to even identify itself with its own language, its own Kashmiri language. So that's why I was mentioning that once a human rights group from Kashmir, from India, Kuldeep Nair, Balraj Puri, Justice Tarkunde, as a very towering faces of the the civil rights movements, they had once come to Kashmir and they had a presentation at the Kashmir University. I remember the Dean Faculty of Law at that time, Dr. Abdullah Harmani Sahib, he was alive. He told them that we do not need human rights, we do not want human rights. Give us the animal rights. Give us the rights which you give in your countries to the animals. Make a kind, those days that India had launched a very big Operation Tiger to save tigers. To have a kind of an operation to save Kashmiris. I think the time has now come. We tell the world, okay, we do not human rights. Give us the rights which you give to the animals. The Kashmiri race is going to be extinct. I don't think next 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, I will see anybody who can understand, who will be actually speaking, who will be Kashmiri just by name. We need to actually preserve this identity. It has a large responsibility has now come on the shoulders of the AJK government. So I think this. I think many times, even before also, I don't know why there has been nobody is actually listening. There is a need for actually to create a kind of a resource center now in Azad Kashmir and Muzaffarabad. What has happened to us in last 30 years, it will be all vanished. When the kind of the Holocaust museums Jews have built up in Poland, in Jerusalem, in many other parts. We need the kind of history they have preserved. I think we need to preserve our history, at least to tell the next generations what had happened to us when we were demanding the Azad. There was in 1994, India had signed a memorandum with the International Committee for Red Cross. It was a concession at that time. It was given it has a background what had happened in 1994 at the UNHRC, and out of it at that time actually India was only on the verge of getting sanctioned. In return to that, India had signed an agreement with the ICRC to give them access in Jammu and Kashmir. To give them access to they had an office in Srinagar, they had an office in Delhi, and they used to quite often visit to the jails. So actually to at least keep the records and actually to meet these prisoners. 2014 onwards, ICRC is reducing its staff, has reduced its staff quite a considerable effect. I think in Srinagar they have wind up with office. In Delhi they have offices now, but that office also has no actual inclination to what for actually they were set up there. They have some awards for the Indian press awards, etc., but they don't work what for actually. They have considerably reduced the staff. Actually, it is a time for the government of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, government of Pakistan, to report to Geneva why this ICRC is not going to visiting jails post 2014. They have a memorandum with the government of India. It was not given as a concession. It was actually they had not given this concession to us. They had given that concession to India at that time. And there is often this genocide of the Kashmiri Pandits is often actually reported in the media, we have of killing of the 2,219 Kashmiri Pandits. If it is a genocide, what you call of killing of 1 lakh people in Kashmir. Still, there is a long history about their migration, how it happened, because I was myself a witness. I've been the witness to it. Was myself a witness. So how it happened, why it happened. We have 30,000 people in Azad Kashmir here. There are 28 villages along the line of control which are declared in the census of India that are uninhabited villages. Where in 1990 army came and they were forced to quit those villages. Where in 2000 in Kargil, in 1990 in Kargil, and again in 2001 Operation Program, they were forced and they were pushed to this side. Instead of creating a kind of a camps for them in Srinagar or elsewhere, they were pushed to this side of this side of Kashmir. There is no mention about them anywhere. There is no mention about that there have been these people have had to leave their homes because of that. Their homes were taken over by the Indian Army. So, and once this is post 1990, it was the first time when the Western media hadn't actually showed its interest to Kashmir. The way New York Times, Washington Post, many other big media houses, the way they covered the post 5th of August was commendable. Though there were some lacunas, but it was quite commendable. It generated interest in the people in the streets in many parts of the world. But unfortunately, there was no actually stamina to sustain it. It had to be sustained. Why should they had their own interest? Only we could have sustained it. This in 1990, I remember Iraq invaded on Kuwait. All this interest for this Kashmir vanished. Their attention diverted to Kuwait. For the Azad Kashmir government, or even at least they create a kind of a social society here. That social society which can go to these capitals and at least get in touch with the civil society organizations in those countries. In the Western countries, at least, women rights groups, child rights groups, civil society groups, they have a voice. They are quite very forceful. You can, if you have to convey something to the governments there, you can convey them through the civil society groups. And what was happening in Kashmir, it could have actually created a kind of pressure groups in those Western states if we had sent our if not a delegation, if we had sent some people from civil society groups from this part of the Kashmir. It was not possible for us to actually send somebody from the Indian occupied Kashmir, but at least from this part of the Kashmir, and then they could have explained to them quite very well, and they could have created a kind of a momentum. That momentum could have sustained. I have already almost surpassed the time. I think for this Azad Kashmir, there are issues of governance in Azad Kashmir, no doubt. And it is for the government of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, they should attend those issues of governance. Because once it becomes an problem for us that in the Western world, in India, these governance issues and our occupation issues get combined, they get collided, and it becomes then they say, okay, it's a balance. In here also, these are suffering. Here also, the people are suffering. They don't make a difference between an occupation and the issues of governance. I think, and Azad Kashmir could have been a kind of a model for almost whole of the South Asia, in terms of if they had gone through those political reforms, economic reforms, and many other reforms. It could have been a best laboratory. It's a very small area. This area could have been tested here. But unfortunately, these things should not. And we also, for this line of but heavy militarization, despite closing of the line of control, we should not allow this line of control to become a hurdle between Azad Kashmir and the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. We should devise means that the people from the both sides have some means to meet somewhere. At least we can, in Dubai, in somewhere we can organize some football tournaments, some cricket tournaments between these two parts of the Kashmir, at least to keep them at least in communication levels. And also, I am quite very unfortunately, which I am stating that Kashmiris, when we come here to Pakistan, when we come here, we have to come here on the Indian passport. What else document we have? How can we come without that? And then when they come to the Kohla, they are stopped and they are told that you are with an Indian passport. Anybody who has a state subject certificate of the Jammu and Kashmir government, state subject certificate of Jammu and Kashmir, I think you too have in Azad Kashmir, they should be given a separate identity card and then allowed to come to Azad Kashmir if they want to come. They should get a separate identity card besides this. Because without Indian passport, how can we travel? We have to come here on the Indian passport. Even if we do call them ourselves Indians, but we have to come on the Indian passport. What else we can do? We can come here. I think this government of Azad Jammu and Kashmir and government of Pakistan must think over it. They should be given a separate identity card besides this, besides what the passport they have. Yes, I think the constitutions can be abrogated. So these countries can be abrogated, but the law of karma cannot be abrogated. Law of nature cannot be abrogated. Law of nature is with us. Law of nature tells us कि जो तारीख है एक पहिया होता है, घूमता रहता है. History moves like a wheel. हमारा दिन आ जाएगा. हम 400 सालों से गुलामी की ज़िंदगी बसर कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हमारा दिन कभी बिल्कुल ज़रूर आ जाएगा और वो सुबह ज़रूर आएगा. Thank you.